Okay, we're going to be applying some shapes here, and it says find the dimensions of the shape. So what you want to first do here, and the length is x feet, so you don't know what x is, and then the width is x minus 7 feet. Again, without knowing what x is, you're not going to know that. But you do know the area is 18 square feet. So what I want to do is set up the multiplication for the area. So I know that the base, the length, that's x, and it doesn't matter the order you put them in, and then we're going to have x minus 7, okay, and it equals, the area equals 18 feet. Okay, so I'm going to put a 1 in front of that x, and now what I need to do is multiply this across, okay, so I'm going to take 1 times 1, and then that's 1x times 1x. I'm going to go back to the 1x and take 1x times negative 7. Okay, so we know that, and by the way, you might want to put 1s in front, okay? So 1 times 1 is 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2, so it's 1x to the second. Then 1 times negative 7 is negative 7, and we just got that x to the first right there. Okay, so obviously none of these are the same. Okay, so, and there are no numbers without x. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put 1x to the second from here plus negative 7x. Don't put that first power on the x. Okay, you don't need to do that. And then over here we have 18. Okay, so it's multiplied out. Now I know there are two answers to this. And then for x's, I have the x to the second power and the x to the first power. So we need to get a 0 in here. So what I'm going to do is subtract 18. And then I'll have 0 on that side. And then I'll just put minus 18 afterwards. Okay. So now I've got 1x to the second plus negative 7x, just put minus 7x, and then minus 18, okay? All right, now that you have your 0, you underline the big guys, and we count 3 of those. So I know that the way to solve 3 is to do a GCF, and then set up your T-chart. Okay. And then whenever we do T-chart, we want to know what A equals. Okay, so GCF. Well, I do not have the negative right there, so don't put negative. I also do not have X on every line, so I can't put X. And if I plug in 1, 7, and 18 into the GCF calculator, it's going to give me a GCF of 1. Okay, so that means that's a waste of time. So now I do the ABC, and I take A times C. So I'll be taking positive 1 times negative 18. Well, that gives me a negative 18. All these are going to be negatives when you take A times C. So on all of them, you're going to look for a difference that equals the B, 7. 1 and 18. Nope, 18 minus 1 is not 7. 18 divided by 2 is 9. Okay, there we go. That's 7. So I have the two numbers. Now my 7 was minus, so I got to have minus 9 for sure. And if it's a difference, the signs do not match. They'll be opposite, so plus 2 and minus 9. Now A is equal to 1, so that's nice, because if it's 1x squared, I know I can just do x times x. And then plus 2 and minus 9, okay? And that's F1, and that's F2. So F1, x plus 2 can equal 0, or F2, x minus 9 can equal 0, okay? So I put a 1 in front of the x, box it up, and I'm minus 2, minus 2. 1x is negative 2, so negative 2 is your first answer. Plus 9, 1x equals 9. Now in geometry, we want to disqualify the negative answer, okay? So here's what I do with that 9. I take the 9 up to the rectangle, and I cross out the x's, and I replace them with 9, okay? So the length is 9 because it was just x, but x was replaced with 9. So 9 by, and then 9 minus 7. What's 9 minus 7? It's 2. So the dimensions are 9 by 2. Okay, my next one. Here's a rectangle. And again, they give us dimensions, but the dimensions both contain the x variable. So to find the dimensions, we're going to have to solve for the x. And it says that the area is 128 square yards. Okay, so you want to set up your area multiplication. You are equal to 128. And then x plus 6 is the length, and x minus 2 is the width. So I need to find this product. I know I'm going to have 128 on this side. Okay, so FOIL, we take 1x times 1x. Then I take 1x times negative 2. Then I take 6 times 1x. And then 6 times negative 2. Okay, let's set this up so we got 1s in front, okay? So 1 times 1 is 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2, so 1x to the second. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2, and then we just have the x to the first. 6 times 1 is 6, and we have the x to the first, and then negative 12. Okay, so this time we have some that are the same. So I've got x to the second as my high guy. I've got x, and then I also have a number that doesn't even have an x. Okay, so for x to the seconds, I've got 1. For x's, negative 2 plus 6 is 4. And then I've got the negative 12. Okay. So far so good right there. Okay, now you're solving for the x. So there's 2 answers. And when I look at this problem, I've got x to the second and I've got x to the first. So I need the 0. So I need to subtract 128. And that can partner up with the negative 12. Okay, so now I have 0. I have 1x to the second plus 4x. And then I take negative 12 minus 128, and that gives me negative 140. So I'm going to put minus 140 right there. Okay? And now I underline the big guys, and so that was 3 underlines. So GCF, we want to see. And then I'm going to make my T table. And we'll be thinking about what A equals later on. Okay, so GCF, do I have the negative in front of the first number? I don't. Do I have X on all of these? Nope. If I punch in 1, 4, and 140 into the GCF calculator, it's just going to say the GCF's 1. So since I got a GCF of 1, we're just going to not do that. Okay, so I take A times C, so positive 1 times negative 140. Again, it's negative 140, so since I got a negative product, we're looking for a difference that would equal 4. Well, no. 140 divided by 2 is 70. 70 minus 2 is not 4. 140 divided by 3 is a decimal. 4 and 35, but that does not subtract to 4. 5 and 28, 5 and 28, 28 minus 5 is not 4. Decimal. 7 and 20, I'll just go right here. 20 minus 7 isn't 4 though. So you're like, this sucks. Yeah, it kind of does. Okay, 140 divided by 9, decimal, 140 divided by 10. 10 and 14, okay? So what's 14 minus 10? Oh, that's 4, okay? So I have my numbers. And now B was plus 4, so 14's plus 14. And if it's a difference, they can't match. It's got to be minus 10. Okay, so a equals 1, so that's good. I think a equals 1 on all of these. So I know 1x squared is just x times x, and then we're going to have minus 10 and plus 14. And there was no GCF, so that's my F1. That's your F2. Okay, so x minus 10 equals 0. X plus 14 equals 0. So I plus 10, 1x equals 10. There's your first answer. Minus 14, 1x equals negative 14. Okay, negative 14 is the second, but when we're doing like geometry, we want to disqualify the negative, and I want this 10 to come up here. So 10 and 10. Okay, so what's 10 plus 6? That'd be 16 by, and what's 10 minus 2? That's 8. So the dimensions are 16 by 8. Okay, my next one is a triangle. What we're going to do here is make it a rectangle, because I'd rather have a rectangle because I know how to do rectangles. What I just did is I doubled this. So what we're going to do with 31.5 is take that times 2. Okay, so that was a 31.5, but now that I doubled it, I just take it times 2, and now the area is 63. So that's what we'll use for the area. Okay, so again, it's pretty much the same process. I just got to remember to double the area. So in this little box, I'm going to set up my area formula. So I've got 1x plus 4 and 1x plus 2. Now we're going to multiply that out. So I take 1x times 1x. I take 1x times positive 2. I take 4 times 1x, and I take 4 times 2. Okay, so 1, 1, 1, 1. So it's going to be 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2. It's going to be 2, and then x to the first, which is x. 4, x to the first, and then 8. Okay, so let's line up our like terms. Okay, so x second, I've got 1. X, I've got 2 plus 4 is 6. Then I've got 8. Okay, so I need to solve for x, which is to the second power, so there's 2 answers. And for x's, I have x second and x. Those are not like terms, so I need to move everything to one side of the equation, so I have a 0. So I take away the 63, and that will go with my 8. Okay. Okay, so what do I have? I have 1x to the second plus 6x, and then 8 minus 63 is negative 55. You can put plus negative if you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now I underline the big guys, and I see that we got 3 of them. So GCF, and then I'll break down the rest using the T-chart. Okay, GCF, negative in front, no. Do you have X on everything? Nope, don't have an X here. And then 1, 6, and 55, the GCF is 1. Whenever 1's the smallest number, it's going to be a GCF of 1. So A, B, C, okay? So A times C, that's going to be me taking positive 1 times negative 55. Okay, that's negative 55, so if I got a negative, I'm looking for a difference that equals 6, okay? 55 and 1, not 6. 2 is a decimal, 3 decimal, 4 decimal. 55 divided by 5 is 11. 11 minus 5 is 6, so I got it. I got plus 6. You're going to have plus 11 for sure, and if it's a difference, they can't match. Okay, and A equals 1, so that's good news. I know I can just make it with using a x and x. Minus 5 plus 11. There was no GCF to worry about, so I just have an F1 and an F2. Okay, so x minus 5 can equal 0. or x plus 11 can equal 0. So I plus 5, 1x equals 5. Minus 11, 1x equals negative 11. Okay, so I disqualify the negative, and 5 is the one I'm going to take up here. So 5 plus 4 and 5 plus 2. So 5 plus 4 is 9 by, and then 5 plus 2 is 7. So the dimensions are 9 by 7. Okay, next one. Length and width. The length is x plus 8. The width is x. Okay, area is 32.5. So I need to double that because I want this to be a rectangle. Now here's how you make this a rectangle. It's pretty easy. You go like that and like that. So now it's a rectangle. So I take 32.5 times 2. That gives me an area of 65 square feet. Okay, so remember, I want to find out blank by blank. So let's get our area, parentheses, with it equal to 65. And I've got 1x plus 8 for the length, and then 1x for the width. Okay, so let's multiply. I take 1x times 1x. And then I'm going to take, that'll be done because that's the only thing I have. And then I'm going to take 8 times 1x. So only 2 multiplications there. Okay, so 1 times 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 8x to the first. Okay, so we're equal to 65. Okay. And then second's your highest. At x to seconds, I got 1. X, I've got just the 8. And then I don't have any non-x's from over here. I will here in a second, though. And now there's 2 answers. And I've got x to the second and x again. So we need to clear this 65. Get it out of here. That'll go with my 0. So I've got 1x to the second plus 8x. 0 minus 65 is negative 65, and now I'm ready to go. There are 3 terms in the equation, so when I factor, I look for a GCF, and then I set up my T-chart. Okay, GCF. I do not have the negative in front, I don't have x on everything, and then the GCF's 1, so forget that. Okay, so it's going to be negative 65, because you take a times c, positive 1 times negative 65 is negative 65, so I'm looking for 2 factors that make a difference of 8 when I subtract them. Nope. 65 divided by 2 is a decimal, 65 divided by 3 is a decimal, 4 is a decimal. If you divide by 5, you get 13. So what's 13 minus 5? That's 8. So I got my answers. Okay, so I got plus 8, so you got to have plus 13, and on a difference they won't match. Okay, a equals 1, so I just need 2 parentheses. X minus 5 plus 13. Okay, so that's F1, that's F2. So x minus 5 equals 0, or x plus 13 equals 0. So plus 5, 1x equals 5. Minus 13, 1x equals negative 13. Okay, so negative 13. So get rid of the negative. Let's disqualify that. And then 5 I take up here. So 5, and that's 5. So what's 5 plus 8? It's 13. And then here I just have 5. Okay, next one. Number 1. Your assignments are going to be number 2 and number 3. Okay, I'm going to do 1 and 4 as examples in here. Okay. All right, so blank by blank is what I want to find. So I'm going to set up my stuff right here. Equals 100. This is already a rectangle, so I don't need to do any doubling or anything like that, okay? So 1x is my length, and then 1x minus 15. Okay, so let's go multiply. I take 1x times 1x, and I take 1x times negative 15. 1, 1, 1. So 1 times 1 is 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2. So 1x to the second, and then 1 times negative 15 is negative 15, x to the first, and that's all you have. So equals 100, and then blank x to the second plus blank x plus blank. X second, I got a 1. X, I've got a negative 15, and I really didn't end up with anything that didn't have an x, so we'll put a 0 for now. And there are two answers, and since I've got x squared and x, we need this 100 to join everything else, and that'll go with my 0. Okay, so I've got 1x to the second plus negative 15x. 0 minus 100 is negative 100. 0. Now I got 3 terms, so now I do the GCF. And my T-chart with what A equals. Okay, GCF, well, you don't have a negative in front. You don't have X on everything. And if you punch 115 and 100, you're going to get a 1 as a GCF. So that's going to be a waste of time. Okay, so I take A times C, positive 1 times negative 100. And that's negative 100, so I'm going to be looking for a difference of 15. 1 and 100, no, that's 99. 100 divided by 2 is 50. That's 48, so neither one of these is it. 100 divided by 3 is a decimal. 100 divided by 4 is 25. 25 minus 4 is not 15. 100 divided by 5 is 20, and 20 minus 5 is 15, so it's 5 and 20. So B is negative, so I'm going to put a negative on 20, and it's a difference, so since we had a difference, they got to be the opposite. And A is a 1, so I just need to go x plus 5 and x minus 20. And that's your F1, and that's your F2. Okay? So x plus 5 equals 0. X minus 20 equals 0. Minus 5, I get negative 5 for my first solution. Plus 20, I get positive 20 for my second. Okay? Cross out your negative, and now we go with 20 up here. Okay, so 1 times 20 is 20. 1 times 20 is 20, but minus 15 is 5. 20 by 5. Okay, you'll do 2 and 3. I'm going to set up number 4. Now we have a triangle, so we're going to want to make it into a rectangle, and I take the area times 2. Okay, so 119 times 2 is 238. Okay, so now I have this. So my length is going to be 1x plus 6, and my width is 1x plus 3. Now start multiplying. 1x times 1x. 1x times positive 3. 6 times 1x, and 6 times 3. So it's going to be 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. It's going to be 3x1, 6x1, and 18. So equals 238. Then blank x second plus blank x plus blank. So x second, I've got 1. X, I've got 3 plus 6 is 9. and I've got 18. Okay. All right, there's two answers. And since I've got x squared and x, we need to see a 0 go up in the equation. Okay, and now what do I have? I've got 1x to the second plus 9x. 18 minus 238 is negative 220, so minus 220, 0. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to look for a GCF. And then we're going to look for our difference of perfect squares. Okay, GCF, negative in front, nope, you don't have x on everything, and 1, 9, and 220, that GCF is 1, so forget about it. Okay, it's a good thing this is an example, because this T-chart one's pretty crappy. You take positive 1 times negative 220, and that's negative 220, difference of 9, and you have to go all the way to 11. 22 divided by 11 is 20, and 20 minus 11 is 9. Okay, so 9's plus, so it's plus 20, and difference would be minus 11. And a equals 1, so I just need 2. So x minus 20, x minus 11, sorry, and x plus 20. So F1, F2. And there we have it. So 1x minus 11 equals 0. 1x plus 20 equals 0. Plus 11, 1x equals 11. Minus 20, 1x equals negative 20. Going to disqualify that negative and take 11 up here. Okay, so 11 plus 6 is 17, and then 11 plus 3 is 14. 17 by 14.